what's this going to look like? We had 200 kids graduate with their associate's degree for free because fast forward money all paid for that, or advanced opportunities money paid for that entire thing. Right?
Got me to
Exactly.
change everything up. Anyway, thank you so much for coming, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. This is such a good opportunity to talk a little bit about West Ada and the things going on. So thanks.
Yeah. I have to tell you, one of the number one reasons we moved here is because we did research on school districts in the area, and West Ada popped up as like flying colors. And it was really interesting even getting here and experiencing it firsthand with my family, because it was so overwhelmingly, first off, better than the California district I came from that's ranked really high in California. But it's almost like, I don't know why people would have such a bad idea of Idaho schools, and especially such a prominent one. It's like, no, this is a large school district that does really, really well. I don't know. It kind of baffles me. So I'm really pleased that we can talk about some of the cooler aspects of it.
There are some tremendous things. And so I will just say this. We too looked at schools and said, hey, where do we want to move our kids? And at the time when we moved here, we said, hey, at the time I had a 6th grader and a 7th grader. And education was incredibly important to us, is incredibly important to us. And so making sure that they have those opportunities. And when I reflect back on the experiences, and when you're in the middle of it, you don't know, you think, okay, my kids are getting great education. And I really thought they were. The opportunities, and our own kids say that this is a district of opportunities, the opportunities that are given and the options that are given to kids from our CTE programs to, and we'll kind of get through that, but to our schools of choice, to just the different programs within West Ada School District. I would say are second to none. We feel extremely fortunate I feel fortunate to be a part of this district, a small little icon in this district, and I feel really fortunate to be able to have my kids go through this district.
Yeah, it's awesome. The CTE program was one of I remember standing. So I had yanked my kids from public school in California. And I'll tell you one thing in particular. California, the public school I was going to was ranked really high. It was like top 10% in all of the state. But what you came to find out is that the school district was not actually educating the kids in a top 10% way. What you essentially had was a highly educated, well-heeled community that had resources and parents that knew what was up. And so kids would go to school and they would come home. And from a very early age, I had friends that had 4th graders that were like, hey, where can I get some reading tutoring? Or 4-year-olds, not 4th grade, 4-year-olds. And I was like, I mean, can't you just read with Nolan at home? He's like, well, I really want to get him a jump start on, preschool and stuff. So people were spending all kinds of money, thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars per year on auxiliary education. Now, mind you, that was the school district was taking all the credit for that. So for instance, I was in SAT prep. The school district was not great at educating students in math. So when I would get a hold of a student, they were, let's say, like a 550 or something on the SAT score out of 800. And I would help them get up to, say, 650 or 670. And then the school district would pat themselves on the back like, yeah, look at our kid, got a 670. But in reality, it wasn't the school district. When we moved here, blown away. It actually is the school district. You don't have the same kind of army of tutors. And I'm not saying there aren't additional additional auxiliary education options like Mathnasium or something. But by and large, you have teachers that are really working hard during school hours, after school hours, before school hours. I've met with one of my son's teachers several times now, obviously early in the morning, chatting about different strategies for him. Super pleased with that.
Our teachers are the most underappreciated, amazing individuals. Every single day I get to go in and be just a little piece of that and watch the craft that they create in their classrooms every single day. It's amazing. The work that they put in. And you're right. Our first response is never, oh, go get an outside tutor. Our first response is never, you're going to need extra assistance outside of this, and we can't provide that. Our first response is, how do we get you to the finish line, whether that's in kindergarten or that's in 12th grade? How do we get you to the finish line? And I think our results show that. We are a direct reflection of amazing staff, from our teachers to our classified employees to our administrators. It is what we do. Somebody asked me earlier, like, what system is it that you guys? It's not magic. It's the people that make it magic, and they really do. I think we try to work really well with our families and provide those top-end educational opportunities. in the classroom every single day. And when kids don't get it, we really sit down and say, okay, well, why aren't these kids getting it? And how can I help additionally or differently, right? To be able to provide those extra services so they can be successful. And some of those services might be really small, right? Instead of saying, hey, go out to an outside tutoring agency. Hey, I have a little, I'm struggling a little bit with my math. Great. We offer tutor.com. And that's paid for. They can go on. My daughter, so I was a math teacher by trade. That was that's how I started in education. And so my kids usually wait for me to get some help in math. And so my daughter came to me and said, Dad, I need some help with my statistics. Well, I was right in the middle of a board meeting or I had something else going on. And I said, well, go to tutor.com. Let's just see what that happens. I always want to be able to help my kids, but I thought, well, let's just see how it works. Sure. Came back out and I felt like, well, you don't need me anymore, because she said, Dad, this guy on the computer totally helped me out. We record all those sessions. It's safe for kids. We're able to go back and everything is transcribed. So we see what it looks like. We track how many kids are using it. It's really, really effective. And it's a tool that we provide, and it's part of being a student within West Ada School District.
That's great. And having that real specific point of help. There was a company that I actually was connected to loosely called Math Elf, and they were just a little bit ahead of their time, but they were essentially like Uber for tutoring. So the second somebody had a problem, they could go on to Math Elf, and I don't think it exists anymore. And there were like tutors floating around, and they were ranked by students and, different specialties, but they could pick them up. They're like, look, I only needed, I had a 10-minute question. I don't need to schedule an hour session with a tutor. I don't need to wait 3 days. I just need this question answered right now. And having that immediate point of contact with somebody who can answer the question, sometimes it makes all the difference. Like, okay, great. I can finish my homework now. I'm not lost. I don't need to wait a day to ask my teacher a question. It's a really important thing. This podcast is brought to you by MTU Studios. If you're looking to start a podcast or need content for your business or personal use, content of any type, please reach out to MTU Studios. MTUstudios.com. We'd love to help.
No question. I mean, and some of the feedback we get from our parents, especially as math has transformed a little bit, and I don't know that math has transformed, but some of the questions that we ask, we're really asking kids to apply the mathematics rather than just be able to have some rote response. And so that's sometimes difficult for our parents that don't live in education and don't live in that world, to be able to answer those right out. I spoke with one dad who said, listen, I'm an engineer by trade, and it takes me 20 minutes to go through and try to help my son with his math homework. Bottom line is they can get on tutor.com. They can help out. They can get on tutor.com with their parents, and they can go through it together. And what a good opportunity for families to be able to obviously value education, but also be able to work at a cost-effective way. Right.
And again, I love math. I went into college as a math major, big fan of math, but not everybody loves math. And once you go,
I can't believe you said that. That's a shock to me.
Blown away. Back to your CT. So I remember I was standing in my kids were in a private Catholic school, and I was standing in the playground when we were looking to move up here. And my dear friend, Chris, who had moved up here with my other friend, Mike, they have their kids, 3 kids in West Ada. And she was telling me, she's like, you have no idea the amount of options kids have up in this district. Now, again, the district we were coming from, they boasted this really high level of 4-year college matriculation. So it was something like 98% of kids ended up eventually in a 4-year college. But any educator or parent will tell you, not 98% of kids really will benefit from college or should be going to college, right? Like, it's just too many. Like, there's some people that just aren't interested in academics at the time, yet they were getting forced into it. And it was this incredibly problematic thing because, again, I worked with a lot of kids that weren't really going to be best served by going to a 4-year college, but their parents in school absolutely insisted. And one of the big problems was the kids knew they weren't college bound. They knew they weren't going to be best served. They looked at it at best as like, well, I get to get out of the house. But they also had to compare themselves to people they knew were going to be successful in college. So from a young age, like freshmen, sophomores, they're like, damn it, I'm just an idiot. Because everybody's so geared towards college that they weren't really thinking like, all right, look, is my kid going to be best served here, or is there something else? And there was this huge problem in the community with some parents, a small minority of them coming forward and saying, hey, look, I love my kid. He's trying his best. he's not going to be best served by college. Like there are plenty of people in this community that make very good wages in trades. Like we had plumbers that were making $250,000, $300,000 that were fine contributors in the community that didn't need a college degree to do what they did. But the school district wasn't supporting them. So you had these kids kind of eking along. They'd end up going to private lower end colleges that cost, $200,000, $300,000 for 4 years. It was just a huge drain. And then the kid comes out and decides he wants to, go into something that doesn't require a college degree anyway, right? Like how many sales jobs are there in the tech world or whatever that don't, I have a dear friend who didn't go to undergraduate at all. And he's making oodles of money in tech sales. So my point is West Ada, I feel like got ahead of that in that it recognized, or perhaps the tenses are wrong. It's not that it got ahead of that, but that the community recognized even when you had this mass wave of, we all have to go to college that kind of took hold over the last 20 to 30 years. West Ada appears to have not gone down that route as hard. Now, that's not to say there aren't benefits that college-bound students can reap from the West Ada system, right? Like the Fast Forward program. But there is a huge CTE, like incredibly robust system for students that aren't necessarily college-bound, but obviously want to graduate with something in their back pocket to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen in education, and this is really a nationwide trend, we saw what I would call college or career ready. And that's where we really tried to identify students. And we said, hey, you're a college kid. Oh, you're a career kid. And we didn't give those career kids much benefit. We just said, hey, you're a career kid. We're going to teach you how to change oil in a vehicle. We're going to get you over to this place, and that's what you're going to do for your life. So then I think from a marketing standpoint, we figured out, and I say we, education being we,
Sure.
said every kid has to go to college. Every kid's going to go to college, and
Right.
the only way you can be successful after school is you have to have a college degree. It's the only possible way. That's the environment I lived in, right? In West Ada, instead of saying college or career, which was really that last piece, I really like to talk about college and career, which means at the end of 12th grade, we talk about this all the time within the district. At the end of 12th grade, I want our students to have options to go to whatever college they want, to be able to pursue any of those college opportunities and be career ready, which that and piece is different, right? It's not a pathway of, oh, you're this kid or you're that kid. It's both. I want kids from being able to shake a hand and look somebody in the eye and say, hey, my name is Derek. Very nice to meet you. Right. To be able to have the really important skills of being able to work in our collision program, our automotive program, our welding program. One of our, I'll tell stories, but one of my best experiences since I've been in this district is I got to go over and the Metals Workers Union signed one of our welders to a contract. And the student, I went over, the parents were obviously super excited. The kid hasn't even graduated, sure. And he's signing with them, signs a contract, just like it was a letter of intent, as if you were going in to play college sports. And the kid was really excited, and the kid looked over and he said, so Dad, I don't really understand. What does a 401k mean? And you're like, man, this is so exciting for an 18-year-old kid who is going to probably make more money than I will ever make being a welder, which we need in this community. Anybody that's gotten any of these skilled trades work done lately, I'm going to tell you, it's tough. And our goal in our district is to meet the needs of our community. And that's one way we can do it, but there's so many others. And it's not just those skilled trades, right? We have pharmaceutical programs. We have nursing programs. These are all high need areas that if we can just start our kids out with some of those certifications, I think it's a service that hopefully we can provide our community, and we can just make that little difference.
Right. And I love that it's a homegrown thing that keeps kids functioning in this community, because one of the, again, another criticism I had of the area I came from is the kids knew there was 0% chance they were going to be able to continue existing in the community they grew up in the absence of incredible parental support or just striking it. Like I had a student whose dad was really, really savvy, grew up with not very much, and then, ended up having more, helped him go to a fifth year. So he's like, we'll get you into Exeter for, this fifth year after high school. Really took this high-end route, ended up going to Amherst. Then he's like, you're going to go to junk bond trading. So like 23, 24, this kid's, getting into trading. And yeah, That guy by 30 something was making 7 figures. Okay, good for him. How many of those kids existed to be able to come back by 30 and live in the community they grew up with? Very, very few. So kids would graduate and they're like, look, man, I don't really know what I want to do, but like, I'm going to end up living in like, I don't know, Antioch or Pittsburgh
Yep.
or less desirable places, unless they had to eat crow and let their parents cut them a check for like $500,000. I just found that so demoralizing and frustrating for students. And students would tell me that they were not happy about it. I love that West Ada, actually, I have a friend who has a junior, goes to Eagle High. He really wants to be a fireman, right? And he's able to start working towards things like that with the CTE program. There are students that I knew that I worked with that really wanted to be nurses. And they're like, okay, well, my wife wanted to be a nurse. And she was like, well, I'm going to have to do this 4-year degree, and then I'm going to have to go to nursing school and all these other things. If she was living here, she could have gotten some of that stuff out of the way and gotten a jump start on it, which would have been beautiful.
Well, and I will even say this. I met with a girl, this is probably a year ago now. I met with one of our students, and she was in our nursing program. And I said, well, how do you like the nursing program? I expected, I'm the superintendent, I hope that our kids would look at me, smile, like, because they're all
It's
polite kids.
great.
It's amazing. And that's kind of what I expected. And she said, if you want to know the truth, I don't really like it. And I said, well, what do you mean? Tell me a little bit about that. Are we not challenging you? Is it? And she said, no, I learned that I don't really like the sight of blood. And I said, oh, how's that changed for you? And she said, well, bottom line is I don't want to major in nursing. You can learn that in West Ada for free. And then she can choose that career path. We know that kids change those things all the time. That could be 2 years into education at one of our universities before you actually figure out, I don't like the sight of blood. Not my thing. I want to go do something else. Now I want to go down this engineering road. That's really costly to our families. That's costly to our kids. That takes time to be able to, we know all of the repercussions from that. So even when kids don't love that career path, it's introduced them to that. And now they have an option to say, hey, no, I want to do something different. I'd like to look at something a little bit different. We have welders. I have a welding student that just let me know he's going to go to engineering school. What a great skill to have, welding behind. Oh, by the way, I'm going to major in mechanical engineering, but I have this trade skill that I can also be a welder. That's a huge skill for some of the people that are coming out.
And those things aren't actually mutually exclusive. I have a very good friend who did a PhD program at Georgia Tech, I believe, in mechanical engineering. And he was showing me this refrigeration unit that he was building that ran off of natural gas. Don't ask me how, but somehow lighting a fire in this mechanism created a cooling system. I think it drove the compression. It doesn't matter. The point is he did this stuff, but he was building this mechanism. Like, he had to get the machinist to like make these tiny like millimeter thin sheets, and he was putting everything together and, all these different screws and stuff. But if you have somebody who's good with their hands and wants to be an engineer, that's only a benefit to the kid.
No
that
question.
They understand how to do those things. I can't tell you the number of times, and I'm not in the trades, but my capacity I love building. I love, building furniture. I built the studio we're sitting in. I benefit so much from having that skill set. And it was something that I unfortunately had to learn later in life because the schools I was going to didn't have, like, I would have loved to take shop class or something like that, or woodworking. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a great point. And as schools around the United States were pulling things out of their schools, I was at a school as well in California, and we were pulling out an auto shop. We just can't fund the auto shop anymore. As they're doing that, we're building those things. Yeah. And I think that we're providing opportunities. There's no better feeling than pulling into any facility and saying, hey, this student is working, whether it be in residential construction, which we have a great residential construction program. Don't know, we need people that are going to work in residential construction. To our pharmaceutical program. I was over at Walgreens the other day, and one of the girls came from behind the counter. Oh my gosh, you were my high school principal. Like, those are the things we're helping our kids contribute right back to our community. And that's what we want them to do, because we also recognize that we need that workforce to stay right here, because when they leave, when they go away to school, when they leave this area, a lot of times they don't come back, and we need them to be here. We want them to contribute to our workforce, because we know that that's part of education's role, is to give them those skills to be able to be successful right here in our community.
And then here's the launch program. Okay, that now correct me if I'm wrong, it's about $7,000 or $8,000 for students graduating from high school to get essentially trained in a specific career, right? Trade, career, something of that nature. One of the criticisms of that program was that students would take that money, take that skill set, learn these things, and then leave the community. I always found that to be a limited objection, because it's like, okay, how many people leave the community because they don't have the required skill sets to add value in some field, and they have to either move away to a cheaper area or move away somewhere to get trained? It's like helping people be able to meaningfully contribute locally, even if it costs them money. It's like, that's not a bad thing at all.
This is one of the first scholarship type programs that I've seen that helps students in the trades. And I think we have such a good product within the Treasure Valley. I live here in the Treasure Valley, obviously. I think it's such a good product. I think kids want to stay here. They need to find a way to make a living. And you're investing in kids to be able to. So the way that program works, they have really identified high need areas. And I say they, workforce development has figured out these are the high need areas. And so this is a scholarship available to kids. Kids all had to apply, and I believe by October 1st. Seniors had to apply by October 1st. But it's available. A set of money is put aside to be able to provide our students with some type of a scholarship opportunity, whether that be go to some type of post certification for welding or lineman school. There's just so many opportunities we need that here in the Treasure Valley. And if we're able to keep them here in the Treasure Valley, it has to be spent on a school here in Idaho. You can't take that and say, I'm going to go to lineman school in Utah. But it's going to be right here in the area. Kids are going to stay here. We know that it's a great product. We're not selling a bad product. This is a good place to be. What happens is oftentimes you go to a trade school in a different area, or you just end up going to school in a different area, and you say, well, I've kind of settled here. I've got connections here now, and I end up staying here.
Right. You meet a significant other, you get an internship, you have all kinds of things. And the anxiety that people have with offering a scholarship program like that, and again, you have to apply. It's not just like they're cutting everybody $8,000 checks. You have a certain amount of money of your taxes that go towards undergraduate anyway. So like if you want to go to Boise State, right, there's a certain amount of money coming from the state to supplement, like your tuition doesn't cover everything. Those people that go, say one of my sons grows up and goes to Boise State and studies, I don't know, engineering or something, whatever it is, he's not required to stay here, right? And the cost of a 4-year degree to the state for that one student is considerably more than $8,000. I can't remember the exact number, but it's something like almost twice as much per year it costs a state to run an undergraduate through the Boise State system.
No question.
So you're talking about tens and tens of thousands of dollars that the state's putting in with no ask to stay here. They're not saying like, hey, look, I'm gonna give you this, but you gotta stay right. Like nobody's saying that, right? So like, why not do that? At least help something like that. And again, not just cutting anybody an $8,000 check. Have an application process. Students have to show some degree of proficiency and interest and desire into a very specific needed field. That's only going to help keep them here.
No question. I think it's going to be a huge boost to our workforce. And to be honest with you, I think it's going to be a model around the United States. It's just something that people haven't dabbled in very much. How do we try to help improve our trades? I spoke with a developer a couple weeks ago, and he said, bottom line is if you have electricians, I'll hire them tomorrow. We know this when we do construction through our schools. We see it all the time. Hey, we would love to be able to help you, but we don't have anybody that can help put up sheetrock. We don't have anybody that can, whatever it might be. We need some of these people. And so providing them with that opportunity is a no-brainer. We're investing in, to be honest with you, we're investing in our kids.
Right. Yeah. Now, that's, again, on the career end of it. But the college end of it, there are a lot of things that you guys do that I really enjoy, and specifically the Fast Forward program that starts in 7th grade. I have sisters that actually go to Eagle High School. They're super excited about taking up some of that money this summer, but it's just over $4,100, and the second you hit 7th grade in West Ada, you can start spending that money on auxiliary education. So you're paying for college units, you're paying for additional classes with particular things. They don't have to be they don't have to reflect the grade you're in. So a 7th grader can take different classes, not just 7th grade classes, but you could take, college classes or, again, auxiliary classes, all kinds of stuff. And you get to use all of that money.
It is just over $4,100 and advanced opportunities. So anything that is going above and beyond what your normal education is going to provide you. We will pay for concurrent credit classes. So if you're taking a Math 3 class at a high school, we're going to pay for that. If you want college credit through that, our kids graduate with a lot of college credits, which is amazing. One of great events that we do every single year is we have kids that graduate with their associate's degree from Idaho State before they graduate from high school. I want to say that again. We have kids that graduate with their associate's degree before they graduate from high school. So I went down. So Idaho State does a satellite ceremony right down here, downtown Boise. And I went down and I thought, okay, well, what's this going to look like? We had 200 kids graduate with their associate's degree for free because Fast Forward money all paid for that, or Advanced Opportunities money paid for that entire thing. So they're going to start their college career, whatever that is, as a junior, and they haven't paid a penny because of those funds that are available. It's really powerful for our kids to be able to get that. And it gives them it lets them dabble a little bit in some more difficult classes. Some of our kids, I've had students that go down to Boise State and take classes down at Boise State. I don't know what I would feel like as a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old being down at Boise State and taking classes, but what a great opportunity for our kids to really investigate where they want to go educationally and what tomorrow looks like for them. And be able to get some reimbursement from the state. So it's powerful.
And what an incredible safety net for people, right? So like my mom was the first in her family to go to college, and she did get an AA degree in accounting, right? So she got this associate's degree and she worked as an accountant. She had a career with healthcare system, and it was great. And she was like, look, I'm a professional. Like, here we go. Sure. This is what we're doing. And just knowing the risks that I think most college-bound people like to have the idea that no matter what, they're going to graduate. But 4 years and the cost is it's like a pregnant elephant. There's a lot that can go wrong, right? It takes a long time, and there's a lot that can go wrong. I knew students that made it a couple years through and something happened in their family, had to drop out, parent got sick, and they didn't end with a degree, and here they had this debt. I knew students there's a student in my calculus class. I really liked this guy. He wanted to go, I think he in fact got into Berkeley, but he didn't have the money, and his parents made just enough money so he couldn't get scholarships. He ended up going to a junior college and then just kind of got sidetracked. Like, there are all kinds of problems where people don't cross that finish line. They either start trying to get a 4-year degree, which does not in general include an associate's halfway through, and they just didn't make it across. And here they've invested, like, you don't get anything if you've done 3.5 years of a 4-year degree besides debt, right? And cost, loss of jobs. So just the security of like, hey, no matter what happens, yeah, like I want to go to college, but I also have this AA. In the event that something happens, I'm okay. Like, I have this marketable degree, which puts me a notch up.
Yeah. And I'll go back to that district of opportunities, right? We try to give those kids, now a student could be taking those CTE courses that we spoke of earlier and taking some advanced opportunities to find out what road do I want to go down, which is really, really incredible opportunity for kids to learn while they are in high school. I will say this also on advanced opportunities money, because I think it's important to note. There are requirements that students have to be successful in their classes. And so there's not just this, I'm going to waste the money and I'm just going to take this class and I'll drop it. There are requirements. We want you got to get good grades. You can get your Fast Forward funds frozen if you're not getting the grades that you
so
need
they
to
can
get.
yank them if they're like, hey, you've done 2 classes, you've done trash in both of these, or you're trash in your other classes. They're like, hang on a second.
Or if you're not successful, AP tests, if you say, hey, I'm going to take AP tests, and they've made some requirements around AP tests. We need you to do well on your AP tests. So it does put a little bit of responsibility back on our students to say, this is something that I really want. We're not just going to waste these funds. I'm going to take these classes really seriously.
Right. And that's only appropriate.
No question. I think it's absolutely appropriate. It's taxpayer dollars. And so to be able to use that effectively and put some parameters around that, we would do the same if we were loaning money to our own kids.
Right, right. They're talking about money, funding this district. Man, that's a trick. This is kind of a unique thing. And, a lot of people, Eagle and this area in general has a slightly older population on average, right? So you have more people that are retired on fixed incomes that don't have kids at home. Maybe they educated their kids in other states and they moved here to kind of be done with that. It's a difficult thing because West Ada is, again, there was like the number one large school district in the state of Idaho. So you need to support it. But you also have such a large geography, north, south, east, west, that it's kind of like the people at the southernmost portion in zone 1 of the district, they may not be sympathetic to the needs of people, in zone 4 or 5 that are more in the north and then the west part of the district. So obviously we had the school levy that did not pass, right? And that was asking for $500 million over 10 years. Trustee Benetti did point out, and he said, look, the ask seemed very large, but it was also over a very large time frame. He's like, if you amortize that year to year and then distribute it across all the campuses, you're really talking about like essentially $500,000 per campus, when it came down to maintenance and stuff. He's like, that could be a paint job or like a partial roof job. Like that's not that much money. But again, it seemed like a lot, right? And
no question.
And the 10-year time frame, he actually pointed out, he said, the number one criticism that I really understand is, yeah, maybe we trust you or the other members of the board at this time with this $500 million. But in 4 years, we could have a completely different board filled with wackos that then have this money coming no matter what. So there are problems all around, right? You either have to go roughly every 2 years, hat in hand, asking the taxpayer for money, or you try to get some longer term funding taken care of. Where's the sweet middle ground for continuing to supply these programs to the West Ada community?
I don't know.
Okay.
I will say I learned so much.
Next question.
Exactly. I learned so much from that levy. And I do think there is a piece of our community that is the long-term trust isn't there. And I think because long-term stability hasn't been there, stability within the board, we have no idea what that's going to look like. And so we're thankful that we have stability within West Ada School District today. And I think our patrons are thankful, but we don't know what 4 years looks like. We don't know what 5 years looks like. I had a patron come up to me and say, hey, Derek, you're my friend. I appreciate you and I trust you. I don't know who's going to come after you. I don't know what that looks like. So I absolutely understand that. I take that very seriously. And so as much as when we talk about a price tag like that over the time period, I think the time period was it was a problem. And so we've learned from that a little bit. I think we need to really look hard at that. What I haven't heard from patrons is you don't need help with facilities. I haven't heard from people saying, we don't have a growth issue. People understand that. It just was that ask was just not approved by taxpayers. And we get that. And so I think we need to take a really long, hard look at the way we do fund schools. We're very thankful that our community does help us out and is generally very supportive of those different initiatives, from a supplemental levy to a bond or a plant facility levy. One of the things that I would say in West Ada, I get this all the time. Oh, maybe we should shrink into smaller district, or we have the lowest tax rate. I don't know of every school district because I haven't pulled the school, but I will tell you of surrounding districts, and this isn't to throw anybody under the bus. So when my partner superintendents look at this or listen to this, I will say we have the lowest tax rate of any of our surrounding districts. Part of that is because of our size, and we can have a CTE program at Meridian High School where we bus kids in from Eagle High School. We can have different programs around our district that allow us to really maximize taxpayer dollars. That's because of our size. One of our challenges is also our size, right? What happens in the South is vastly different than what happens in the North. the needs of the North aren't always heard by the South, and the needs of the South are not always heard by the North. And so it's the responsibility of myself and our team to help to bring all those parties together. I would say as a criticism of myself, I don't think we did an effective enough job of that, and we need to get better. And so, but when we bring people together, I think that people start to understand the needs of the district, and then we come up with ways to meet those needs in a responsible way where people aren't going to always feel it as a huge tax burden. Right. We don't want to be a tax burden on anybody. I look at education as an investment from taxpayers. I really believe it's an investment, and I think our ROI is really powerful in West Ada. We are, what we produce in West Ada and in combination with our CTE programs is really second to none. We lead the state in student achievement. It's not just about student achievement, but the opportunities from our schools of choice to our CTE programs is second to none. And so, how do we solve some of these problems together as a community? I think that is our next steps and finding out what those things look like.
Right. And what's interesting as well is that the funding of the district is needed in not a completely evenly distributed manner, right? Like Star is growing like a ton. Meridian's growing a ton. Eagle itself is not growing necessarily a ton. So it's difficult because even though one thing that came to light is that the school district, West Ada, has shrunk a little bit in the last few years. And I brought this up to Trustee Azuna. I said, well, explain this to me. She said, well, one of the problems is it's not shrinking uniformly. Like you have areas that, they are producing fewer students to go into the school district, fine. But then you have areas that are like doubling the number of kids going into the school district. So you have asymmetrical growth and asymmetrical needs. So it's exceptionally hard when somebody talks about, say, splitting the district. It's like, well, instantaneously, you'd need a brand new high school in Star, right? That would not be fully populated. Like you'd have all of these problems. So it's kind of, as you were pointing out, it's almost like the strength of West Ada is that it is so large and you can share resources and programs. That's also one of the downsides of West Ada, that it's so large.
No question. And it's also hard to get the message out of where our needs are and where our needs are not. Right. If I could pick up, and I'll just use as an example, if I could pick up Eagle Elementary and I could move it 3 to 5 miles to the west, we wouldn't have the need. That becomes a problem. We can't just pick up a school and move it 3 to 5 miles to the west. And so what we end up doing is we expand boundaries and we bus kids in, and all of those things are a major challenge for West Ada. Busing's, and we don't need to go down the road of busing, but busing is a challenge for West Ada. Right. Busing is a challenge across the United States. We have a shortage of bus drivers, but as we put, at some point there's a breaking point. And so we say, okay, well, we can start busing kids into Eagle. If you ever look at what Eagle Elementary's boundaries are, Eagle Elementary goes all the way out to Star. Well, anybody that's driven from Star, the center of Star to Eagle on Eagle Road there, that's a challenge. And trying to get a bus there at 8 o'clock in the morning with Eagle High School traffic and everything else coming down Floating Feather is a challenge. And so we have kids getting on the bus to go to elementary school 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Those become early hours and sitting on a bus for an hour.
Right, especially for little kids.
No question.
Like, look, high schoolers can kind of tolerate it. I don't think they obviously need their sleep. But if you're talking about like a first grader that's got to get up at whatever hour to be ready to get on to a bus for like an hour and a half commute or something, like that's a little brutal for the kid.
It's tough. Yeah. I mean, we have different challenges in different areas. And when you live next to one area, you think, okay, well, these are the only challenges. And we also try to take care of our schools in a really positive way. And so not everybody sees what the needs of our schools are. Not everybody knows that I have yet to have somebody drive up to my office and say, gosh, you know what? The air conditioning at Joplin Elementary or the air conditioning at Centennial High School is working so well. I'm really happy with it. You just don't know. But We're doing a really thorough facility evaluation because we know this is how long air conditioning units work.
Right.
This is how long water heaters work. There's so many internal pieces to a building that we need to make sure we have the funds to be able to keep up, to make sure that ultimately our instructional opportunities for our kids, our learning opportunities for our kids are at the highest level they possibly can be, not just for a year, but for the longevity of West Idaho.
Right. Now, speaking of academic opportunities, at the heart of any academic system is meritocracies, right? What are you earning? What are you delivering? And that's grades, right? So like I earned my A, I earned my B. You know, obviously the old adage of like, you gave me a B. It's like, I didn't give you a B, you earned your B. You're like, fine. That's changing, right? The nature of what a grade means and how grades are earned is changing. And this is one of the topics that, again, coming from a district in California, people started freaking out about this stuff because essentially what has happened is, and again, I like your opinion on this, what appears happened is there was an old school paradigm where it's, okay, look, you get like 40% of your grade comes from a test, 30% comes from homework, 20% comes from participation, 10% comes from attendance. So I can be trash at tests, right? 40% of my grades comes from tests. Let's say I get a solid C on every single test. So instead of getting all of that 40%, I just get 30%, right? Solid C, 75%. But I ace my homework, I ace participation, and I never miss a day class. I will get an A in that class. I'll get a solid 90%. The only 10% I lost was on my tests, okay? But tests, it is argued in the academic community, are, again, understand that there's a splice of time that particular day. The tests are what actually is showing, okay, did this student actually learn the material or not? Like, yeah, look, I'm happy they turned in their homework, but that's more of a behavioral thing, right? And like, yeah, I want them to be getting this stuff done, but what you're doing by penalizing not turning in homework is really penalizing a lack of behavior and practice. Ultimately, there's been a shift, which is, all right, look, let's cut the crap. I don't care if there's an introvert in the back of the class who really knows this material and isn't participating. I'm not going to give somebody 10% of their grade just for coming to school because they have to come to school anyway. Okay. And if they ditch my class, they get in trouble anyway. It has nothing to like, bleh. What we care about is proficiency. Can this kid solve this set? Let's use math. This set of math questions in a specific time frame, right? I'll give you 45 minutes, whatever it is. You have to get through this set of material and get the right answers. Can this student do that? That's at the heart of actual competency, mastery learning, right? So what happens then is you say, all right, look, do I care that this student did it on February 1st when the test was assigned? Or do I care that this student can get all of these things right by the end of this school year? All of a sudden you have students that are like, all right, I didn't do well on this test, but I'm going to take the test again next week. Because the idea is, look, let's lengthen the time. Sometimes learning is not a linear thing. Sometimes it comes in fits and starts. Let's lengthen the amount of time till, within reason, till, you get 2 tries, 3 tries, 4 tries, whatever that actually may be. And let's allow students to actually demonstrate mastery, not necessarily on February 1st, but by this time frame. Let's say it's May 1st. By May 1st, you have had all the opportunities you have to retake all these different tests. If you ace everything on May 1st, you're like, I aced the test from February 1st, March 1st, April 1st, and then the one on May 1st. I crushed all these. I know this material perfectly. That's the new paradigm for, okay, well, then you get an A. I don't care as much about homework. I don't care as much about attendance. I don't care if you were quiet in class. I care that on May 1st, you knew how to do all of these things. That's what delivers an A. Am I getting that roughly correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd start the conversation, and it's really important that we have a common understanding of why we grade students. And we really grade students. I just use the definition. We grade students. Our why behind grading students is to communicate academic achievement to all stakeholders. Sure. Sometimes it's to a parent. Hey, my student got a B in math.
Sure.
Sometimes it's to the next year's teacher. Oh, I'm getting all these Math 2 students in Math 1. Derek got a B last year. Oh, okay. That gives me some idea. But it's a communication. Sometimes it's to universities, whatever that is. Right. That's why we grade. So we want to be as accurate as possible. When some of those nuanced pieces come in to it, whether that be, hey, you showed up to my class every single day. Hey, you brought in tissue to my class every single day. Whatever it is, all of those things, they're distractors to what the performance actually is. Now, The other distractor that can happen to what a student's performance is, and we call that evidence, whether that be assessments, whether that be in-class work, something that I know this is your work. That evidence sometimes maybe I have had a bad day. So when do I accept that as evidence of your work? If you get dropped off at school today, your mom and dad say to you, hey, you know what? I hate to tell you this. We're getting a divorce. Have fun on your math 2 test. This happens in our schools all the time. You're not going to do very well on that test. We can get into Maslow and how you feel at that point, but the bottom line is you're not going to do very well on that test. And so now all of a sudden you struggle on that test because your mind's on other things. What's my life going to look like? All of those things. And now we hold that against you. No, what we ask our teachers to do is say, okay, if you didn't do well on that test, you came back and I got a 20% on that test. A 20% could be crippling to your grade for the rest of that semester. So what we ask our teachers to do is sit down with you and say, hey, what's going on? What didn't we learn? We felt like these were all important concepts. You were ready for the test. What didn't you learn? Well, I didn't understand this. Okay, great. I want you to come in. We now have an advisory period that's backed up to lunch. We want you to come in during advisory period, or I want you to come in after school, or I want you to come in before school. And I want you to do what we call show some evidence of additional learning. You can't just come in and say, I want to take another test today. But I can require you to come in and ask for some extra help. And I'm going to go through some extra help. And then when I feel like, okay, now you're ready, we're going to let you retake that test, because that retaking tests is actually one of the things that we do in society, right? I can't tell you how many kids that I've run across being a former high school principal that failed their driver's test and their first time, and they're cruising down the street, failed their board exams when they're doctors for the first time, and they're great physicians in our valley, failed their exams to be an attorney. I mean, there's so many of those examples. But the bottom line is we want our kids to be able to learn. And by just moving on and saying, hey, that didn't really matter, I think sends a strong example that we know we have kids that we have to go back. And especially when you're talking about math, but in all subject areas, we need to bring our kids back and say, this is important. We want you to show exhibit learning. The process of learning is really about failure and coming back and saying, what did I learn from that failure? I've learned how to be successful. And if you can show evidence of understanding and mastering that content, the state approved standards that they move forward, I think that and our philosophy in West Ada is that should be taken into consideration. I really believe that that's some of the secrets to our student achievement is that we don't tell kids, hey, you failed that test, we're just going to move on without it. We say, you failed that test and we need you to come in and you're going to do a little bit of extra work and you're going to learn this, and failure is not going to be an option. We're going to push you a little bit and we want you to do well, and part of that is you're going to learn this. I mean, think about if couldn't imagine if my second grade teacher said, you know what, Derek, you didn't understand how to read that book, so we're just going to stop teaching you how to read. That's just not what we do. We are resilient, and our teachers are amazing at making sure that they're going back and giving our kids additional opportunities to be successful in a class. And it helps out with behavior too, right? As soon as that kid fails, let's go back to that scenario. A student all of a sudden gets a 20% on a test, and now let's say he has a 41% in the class. I'm just
right. It's over.
It's over. Now that kid's in the back of the class. It could be October 1st, and that kid's looking at you like, guess what? I know I can't pass your class, so now I'm a distraction to every other kid in this class because the school's making me sit here. They won't let me drop the class. And I know I can't pass your class. So here I am. I'm going to be a behavior and a distraction for every single person in this class.
Right. I had a friend who was in calculus with me in high school, and almost identical situation to what you're talking about. Second semester, senior in high school. He is obviously a high achieving student. He's in all these top classes. His parents explode. Like the whole family life falls apart. He, for like the first 3 months of that semester, like January, February, March, he's a train wreck. Middle of April, they realize like, oh, he's failing English. Like this is it. He failed the third quarter. He's in the fourth quarter. oh no, we have to make something happen. So the parents get themselves together. They go talk to the principal. They sit down with the teacher. They do everything they can, explain the situation. And it was not a great situation. Like anyone with 2 cents and a heart, it's like, okay, this kid's going through hell. Like these parents are marginally sitting in the same room as each other. So the teacher didn't care at all. She was like, yeah, like he can do, like he can try, but like he's already lost too many points. And they're like, okay, hang on. So this guy, Rick, literally gets like above an A. He gets a perfect score on absolutely everything. Moving forward, she flunked this kid second semester. He doesn't graduate. He has to go to night school, meaningfully changes the trajectory of his life, all because even though he had learned everything required in that semester, he didn't learn it in the time frame required in the first 2 or 3 months of that semester. And again, you could have given him any, spelling test, any whatever you want in April and May. He absolutely would have learned it. He absolutely would have been able to show proficiency and mastery in those subjects, and it was over for him, right? And that kind of like locked into, hey, you're going to pay for your sins of, 3 months ago or 4 months ago, academic sins. Yeah. It's like, it always struck me as so unfortunate.
Well, and that's why I try to fit everything back to that definition of communicating what a student knows, right? If I'm trying to communicate, with your friend Rick, what did the student know in May when he aced everything?
Yeah, right.
Largely, he knew most of what was going on, and so at what point do you not say it? Oh, okay. If our objective is if I'm an English teacher, my objective is to teach the standards in this class, and the student took the fortitude to whatever it took to be able to show proficiency, whether that be delayed or not delayed. Why wouldn't we give kids that chance? We do it all the time. English is actually one of the best examples because we do that all the time, right? That really is rough draft writing. I turn in my first rough draft. Boom, turn in a second rough draft.
Oh, it's so painful. This English teacher was the worst. This is exactly what you do.
This is exactly what you do. So our English teachers actually jump on board with this and they think, oh, okay, thanks, math, science, every other subject area, thanks for actually jumping on board. Right. Because this is the learning process within English. It's just other areas are starting to say, oh, you know what?
That's not a bad idea.
I think of myself as a math teacher. I used to tell my kids when we learned quadratics, we're learning factoring. This is vitally important. You need to know this. You have to know this. And then a kid would fail the test. Okay, next chapter is, well, how much did you really need that? If I tell you I need tires on my car, you're not going to see me driving down the road without those tires. I have to have those. There's some components in math you have to have.
Right. It's a staircase.
Absolutely. And so making that, it does create a little bit more of an expectation for students. And it's funny because I actually did my dissertation on a piece of this. And in that work, what I heard from students was, I know there's no getting off the hook. There's no, well, I just didn't get it. There is, I have to do it. Now I go home, my parents say, well, you didn't do well on that test. So now you have to retake it. Now you're going to have to study a little bit harder. Now you're going to have to go meet with Mr. Bub for a little bit longer. Those are all really powerful, I think, skills that kids can learn. And it teaches them how to be successful, not just in a school setting, but I think beyond that.
Right. And one just final example with this. I had a student years ago. She was not doing well in the public school system. Her parents yanked her. And again, she was having some developmental issues, 15, 16, really struggling, socially was a little awkward. And again, just wasn't crushing. They take her to a private school that focused on mastery learning. And they start telling me, like, well, she's, retaking the test. I'm like, what do you mean retaking the test? So what their plan was, and this was, again, a more private, unique school, but they were like, look, they let her retake it as many times as she wants until she gets an A. And then they move on. And I was like, this is trash. Like, how could you ever design a system around this? Like, this kid is going to fall flat on her face when she goes to college. Until she went to take all the AP tests and she crushed every single one. It was like, wait, how does this work? And then, of course, she goes on to college. She had learned the material so well. And took tests and she's like, I got a C. They're like, you're going to study again and take it again. We're not moving on until you get an A. And she had to put in all of this work. So it was the ability to essentially assess herself, find where she was wanting, correct those things, and then retake it. And even though, and again, the old paradigm, it's like, well, that's kind of cheating. Find out where you screwed up and then, you retake it. But it produced an exceptional student on a test day because I was like, well, this won't work this won't work in the real world. Well, then she went and took the AP test on a very specific day at a very specific time, only took them once. She crushed all of them. She got 4s and 5s out of 5 on all of them. And it was like, oh my God, I'm totally wrong. Like, I don't know anything about education. And this was, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think as much as one might look at this from the outside and say, oh my gosh, we're giving these kids so many chances, and where are the expectations? Interestingly enough, allowing students, or really making students retake exams, increases the expectations on them, because now they have this new expectation of, oh, I have to go back and I have to retake it. One of the fears that we always heard from our teachers is, we're going to have so many kids outside our classrooms, and we have to get. That's not really what you see. What you see is kids coming in and saying, hey, I need to learn this because I didn't get it last time. You told me it was important, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Because kids wouldn't be coming in for extra help. I wouldn't be coming in for extra help if I knew I wasn't able to retake a test. I would say, okay, well, let's go on to the next test, which is how I was educated, right? That was the system in which we did things. I think it creates a whole new level of expectation for our students, and creates a culture in which our students say, hey, it's okay to not do well on a test. I just need to learn from that. There are tests in life in which we don't do well on, and we have to learn from it, and we have to get better. And if everybody did that, if those are the contributing members of our society, I think we're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. Listen, Dr. Bob, I've had you in here for a long time. I have a lot more questions, but we have really, really hammered some really key points. Do you have anything that we've missed that you really want to hit on? And again, I mean, maybe we can do round 2 at some point, but I mean, we've been hammering here for a while. So is there anything you want to touch on before we end?
No, I mean, I would just close with this. I think that West Ada is really unique in the opportunities that we have. From our schools of choice, we have art schools in the elementary school level. We have our STEM
I wanted
schools.
to dive all into the school
And
choice thing. Like, we can chat about it. I don't know.
I
It's
love
like
it
8 o'clock.
when people ask me about, their school choice is always going to be a topic. And when people say that, I think we're a district of choice. You can go through West Ada, and I'll give you the trajectory. You could go to a STEM school in West Ada. You could then go to Renaissance High School. You could then move on, and while you're at Renaissance High School, you can get your pharmaceutical certificate or your CNA, your certified nursing certificate, and graduate, and then go to a 4-year university. Like, those are options that are incredible. And I'm extremely lucky that we have some of those systems in place, and the staff that we have that work in our schools every single day. We have some really good things that I think that I'm fortunate to be able to have my own kids go through these schools. But I'm proud of the work that our schools are doing.
Yeah, a couple things with a school choice. And again, I'm just trying to be cognizant. I know it's a school night. It's already late.
My bedtime's 7 o'clock. Right. So.
The International Baccalaureate program out of Renaissance, fantastic. I didn't have anything like that in the district I grew up in. The emphasis on arts, right? Like the fine arts in West Ada. I grew up playing instruments. I very much appreciate, I played trumpet for years and years, played jazz trumpet, huge fan. And that's one of those casualties that, as well as the career options, the CTE programs in other districts, where it's like, look, we don't have time for shop class anymore. And, let's cut the band funding. Like, let's get these things out of the way, because it's not playing into either STEM programs or just direct college readiness. I have such a great appreciation for the emphasis on fine arts. And again, we have a fine arts academy. Am I correct?
We absolutely have a fine arts academy. Yeah, we have a fine arts academy, and we have arts elementary schools. And so the fine arts academy goes grades 6 through 12. It is a tryout based school. And so you try out for that. But in addition to that, so you can go to an arts elementary school. I'll go through that trajectory again. You can go through to an arts elementary school, then you can go to an arts middle and high school, where really there's an emphasis in the arts in everything that you do. And by the way, you also want to participate in cross country. You can go back to your home school and your boundary school, and you can participate in cross country at that school, because our art school doesn't have athletics. Like, those are really spectacular options for kids to be a part of. Where they really can learn a little bit about what they want to do after high school, but also what are their talents. And we have kids that are talented playing the guitar as well as kids that are talented running on the track. So it's just an outstanding opportunity.
Right. Seeing all the like the chess trophies that are right inside the doors of Galileo, it's like, what an incredible thing, right? Like I really like chess. So seeing that, I got to figure out a way to like volunteer and help. I'm sure like the fourth graders would destroy me, but like, I think chess is so great. And again, nothing like this found representation in the other districts that I was either a part of as a student or as a parent. And just having that option, right? Just it's kind of like a car wash. Like, what options do you want on your car? Do you want the wax? Do you want just the basic? Do you want like, what's your priority? And then having flexibility to move in and out. And yes, I understand that there is some degree of application and like you got to try out like, but that's pretty much anything where you have a scarcity. It's like you can't have everybody in,
no question,
you know, like, and frankly, not everybody is going to want to be there, right? I had plenty of students who kind of like you were talking about with nursing that would initially say, hey, I really want to do this. I'd helped a girl get into law school actually. It helped her get into undergrad. Then she came back and said, look, I really need help with my law school essay and for the LSAT. That's the law school SAT. So I helped her, you know, over the course of 3 months. It was a bear, but again, really helped her get it. She got into a law school with a scholarship, but then realized like, this is just really not for me. And was very thankfully able to transition to a master's program within the same university because they really liked her. They're like, look, you're obviously capable. Let's work with you a little bit here. But having that flexibility of being able to jump from one specialty to another, you got to try out, but like you have different options for different students. It's not a one size fits all. And then again, I was also an athlete. I was a 3 varsity sport athlete. I had 10 varsity letters when I graduated. Being able to have that athletic outlet and the calculus outlet and the fine arts outlet, it's so important. Were you to try to make that happen now in the districts I came from, I don't even think you'd be able to, just because they've cut so many of those programs. And so seeing that have real honor and representation in a fundamental way in West Ada is really awesome.
That idea of school choice is a priority for West Ada. Really being able to meet our families, our communities where they need us to meet them, and giving kids those options. Listen, there's no better feeling than walking into an art school where the students feel like, hey, you know what? I'm in school. Yes, I'm learning reading, writing, arithmetic.
Sure.
I'm getting all of that. But there's also this emphasis in something that I'm passionate about. I hope we're able to offer that to everybody. And to your point, maybe you do have to try out for Idaho Fine Arts Academy. Sure. And maybe I don't make it. Okay, so then you go back to Eagle High School and you get to be part of a state champion dance team, or you get to be part of an amazing choir program or an amazing band program. Like those programs still exist at our traditional high schools. You just go back and you can have that right there at your traditional high schools, and they're excellent programs.
Can you apply the following year?
You can continue to apply.
Okay, so here we go.
Absolutely.
You failed the first time. You go back, you refine your portfolio, you get better at your craft, and you give it another shot. But again, like you're saying, it's not even an all or nothing, right? Say you want to get into the Fine Arts Academy and you don't. It's not like there are no fine arts outlets at Eagle High School. If you just want to really geek out in this, not even a negative way, but hyper focus in this one area at this one school, you may have to apply twice, but you get a chance. You get a chance to apply twice.
It's all about second chances.
I love it. Dr. Buck, thank you for taking the time tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you for explaining all the things we've gone over. I'm a big fan of West Ada. Nothing is perfect, but I genuinely feel like people are trying to improve things and do right by our community and our kids. So thank you for your part in that.
Yep. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's just a good opportunity to be able to talk about the great things going on. And so thanks so much for taking some time.
Absolutely. This podcast is brought to you by MTU Studios. If you're looking to start a podcast or need content for your business or personal use, content of any type, please reach out to MTU Studios, mtustudios.com. We'd love to help.